Okay, so let's talk about chords. Okay, a chord is a combination of three or more notes played together. So if you take your instrument and you play three or more notes, you are playing a chord. All right, the most fundamental unit of harmony in music is a three-note chord, which is also called a triad. So a chord could be a three-note chord, it could be a four-note chord, it could be five, it could have six notes in it, but the basic version of a chord is having three notes, and that's referred to as a triad. Okay, and now in music there are four types of triads. Okay, we have the major triad, the minor triad, the augmented triad, and the diminished triad. You can just call them chords as well, like major chord, minor chord, augmented chord, diminished chord. The triad is just a distinct term used because we know that only three notes exist in that chord. Okay, major and minor triads are by far the most important triads, making up about 95% of most music. So if you take a song, usually you would hear it's filled with major chords or minor chords. Like obviously there are some songs that you're going to have different kinds of chords in it, but most music is based off of major and minor chords, and that's what we'll focus on in this lesson. Okay, so a major triad is constructed from the first, the third, and fifth notes of the major scale. Okay, so this is the major scale for it in the key of C. Now what does that mean? If they say play the C major chord, so what you do is take the first note, the third note, and the fifth note. So that would be C, E, and G. So once you play these notes together on your instrument, anywhere, any part of your instrument, as long as you're playing C, you're holding down C, E, and G at the same time, you're playing a C major chord. Okay, the same goes to any other chord you're trying to form, like a D major chord. Okay, so you write down the major scale, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, and then you take the first, the third, and the fifth notes and you play them together, and you're going to have a D major chord. Okay, so it's always formed from the first, the third, and the fifth notes of the major scale. That's how a major triad is formed. And what does this look like? Okay, so if you have your keyboard, for example, and this is a mistake, this shouldn't be here. Okay, let's scratch that off. All right, but you take your C note, your E note, and your G note and play them together, you're playing a C major chord. All right, and for D, so this is C, E, and G notes played together. For D, you want to play your D note, your F sharp note, and your A notes together. All right, so D, F sharp, okay, and then your A note, and you've played a D major chord on your keyboard. Okay, and on a guitar, what does this look like? If you've gone through the previous lesson, lesson 2, you should know where notes are on the guitar. And this note here on the 3rd fret, so this is the 3rd fret, this is the 1st fret, 2nd fret, okay, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and this is the E, B, G, D, A, E. This is E, B, G, D, A, E. Okay, so if you know the location of your open strings and your location of notes, you would know that once you place your finger on the 3rd fret of the A string, you're playing a C note. And then once you place your your finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, you're playing an E note. And then playing this string, like remember when I said once you see this 0, you don't need to put your finger down anywhere, you're just playing that string open, and this is already a G note. Okay, this is a G note, so you just play that string open, and then you formed your C major chord. This C and E played here, these are just extra notes to make it sound full, but in essence you're playing C, E, and G on the guitar. Same thing with the D chord, so you have D, F sharp, and A. It doesn't matter how you position them, as long as you're playing these three notes on your instrument, you're playing that chord. Okay, so go through the last couple of videos if you haven't. There are also some links to how to play chords on the piano and how to play chords on the guitar in under lesson 3 folders. So make sure that you go through them. This is just to give you the theoretical understanding of how these chords are formed, so that when you're playing it, you know what you're playing and you're not just playing blindly. Okay. All right. So now the minor triads. A minor triad is constructed from the first, the flatted third, and the fifth note. So, okay, so this is why I was going through the whole exercise of, flattening notes or sharpening notes and stuff like that, because once it comes to forming chords, minor chords, you don't just, like, the major is just 1 3 5, okay, but for the minor you want to flatten the third. Okay, it creates this kind of distinct sound that makes it sound sadder. Okay, so major chords are used for, like, happy songs, happy, like you want to have like that happy mood, and when you flatten the third, it turns into a minor chord, and it makes the song sound a little bit sadder and more emotional. Okay, so it's this flatted third that brings that sound difference. When we start practicing, you can now tell the distinct sound between major and minor chords. So what you do is you take the 1, you flatten the third, and then the 5. Okay, so you take the 1, which is C, the third, which is E. What happens? You flatten it. So okay, so this is an E flat, and then the G is the same thing. Okay, and now same thing goes to, like, a D minor chord, right? You take the 1, let me use a different color. Take the 1, which is your D, the third, you flatten it, so this is supposed to be, forgot to change this is supposed to be an F. Is this right? Sorry, this is right. I'm confusing myself now, sorry about that. Anyway, so you take the F sharp and you flatten the F sharp. So when you flatten an F sharp, it's an F. Remember, if we draw this out, so D, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp. Okay, so when we are lowering this note by 1/2 step, we go to F. Okay, so that's why this is an F here. All right, and then the fifth, which is an A. All right, so the C minor chord, is C, E flat, and G. So wherever on your instrument, if you like, play E flat first, then G, then C, you play G, then C, and E flat. As long as you're playing these three notes together, you're playing the C minor chord. And for the D minor chord, as long as you're playing D, F, and A, you could play a higher octave D, you can play a lower octave D. As long as these three notes are played at the same time, you're playing a D minor chord. All right, so augmented triad. So this is supposed to read augmented. So an augmented triad is constructed from the first, the third, and the sharp fifth notes of the major scale. So our major scale, major chord formula was 1 3 5. Our minor was 1 flat 3 5, and now augmented is 1 3 sharp 5. All right, so what does this mean for us? What does this mean? Okay, so we take our 1 as usual, we take a 3 as usual. Now when it comes to the 5, instead of just playing the G, we have to, sharpen it. That becomes a G sharp. All right, let's go to a D augmented chord. For example, we take our 1 as usual, D, take our third, it's supposed to be F sharp, and we take our fifth, but instead of playing A, we have to sharpen it, so this becomes an A sharp. All right, and I just wrote B flat, so you know that an A sharp is the same thing as a B flat. Okay, so you could D, you could write it either way, or D, F, B flat. Okay, so that's how you form an augmented chord or triad. Now the last one is a diminished triad. So this one, you flatten the third and you flatten the fifth note. Okay, so take our 1 here, our third, you flatten it, it becomes an E flat. Our fifth, you flatten it, it becomes a G flat. Going to a D diminished chord now on the D major scale. You take your 1, all right, you take your third and you flatten it, so this is supposed to be an F here, and then you take your A and you flatten it, so this becomes a G flat when you flatten an A. Sorry, this becomes an A flat. I don't know what I wrote. So this is actually D, F, and A flat, or you can write it as, I think I was supposed to write it sharp there, D, F, and G sharp. Okay, so this is your 1, flat 3, flat 5. All right, so I'm just going to stop there, and the next video we're going to talk about chords in a major key. See you there.